It's just a little pond. It's not much. I'm showing you what somewhere between 700 and 800 barrels of water a day looks like. The wheels are about the size of that riser pipe that's the hole in it that's leaking oil. That's equivalent to about 450 barrels a day flow. This pond right now, it's about 8 feet deep. About 5,000 barrels equivalent of volume. Now, if you took this thing as oil and threw it in the ocean, it would get lost. No one would even know it was there. If you diluted 350,000 barrels a day in it, it would only be 21 parts per billion. You would neither see nor care. It would actually, if it was in fresh water at that ratio, it'd be legal to sell it to you as good drinking water. The Gulf of Mexico has natural seeps that are larger than that every day for the last thousands of years. What I'm showing you is how small their numbers are in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm Paul-Noel. To have put all of the oil of 350,000 barrels a day on the surface on the current spill area, it would only be like 20 or 25 millionths of an inch thick. And you know, in the wind it would evaporate in about 20 minutes. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Athens State, and Calhoun Community College. I'm a software engineer. I work at Redstone Arsenal. But then I got to calculating the area of the spill. And that spill by last Sunday covered 12,000 square miles.
Wow.
That's almost the size of the state of Maryland. Gulf of Mexico is the site of massive reserves of oil. That the government issues little postage stamp leases. Those are the oil field that gets measured, not the whole area. The oilmen know that this is one of the largest oil reserves on earth. It's in the Gulf of Mexico. It is enormously pressured. BP says about 19 to 20,000 psi. The depth of the well varies the amount of pressure. If the well is deeper, it can get much higher. People don't realize these wells could blow if they're not stopped for decades. That water is only at 35 psi. I was at a gun shop the other day, and they pointed out to me that a 45 caliber ACP cartridge produces about the same pressures as that well is producing. That is actually the least of the leaks. That one at the end of the pipe, that's the one that concentrate. There's a midway up before a kink, which is much, much higher pressure. And up at the BOP, the blowout preventer, well, that thing is blowing like a volcano. So you could estimate a whole lot more. When you start seeing them pick up oil and it's this deep in their hand out of the water, and when you see Jacques Cousteau's grandson, and they're swimming in a cloud of oil, and there's big droplets everywhere, it's not really just dispersants. The fact is it was already dispersing. The fact is it's only a fraction of the oil that's come to the top. Typically an oil slick is a very thin layer on the water, you know, paper thin or even thinner. This one is not. This is many feet thick of globules in the water. The pressure at the bottom of the ocean is equivalent to temperature. Even though it's very cold down there, the equivalent pressure makes it the equivalent of very, very hot. And when the oil rises through the ocean, it forms what you call a fractioning column. It's exactly how they distill gasoline and oil. When it got into the loop current, which has expanded the slick tremendously, and then was pushing down toward Key West, people don't realize that loop current is the principal feed of the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is 30 million cubic meters a second. And this has been layering out in the anticlines, which is the salt layer, salinity layers in the ocean. Now, I fully expect the Gulf Stream will dilute it dramatically. I fully expect that there will be sections of glops of it and then nothing. You understand. But the Gulf Stream is the culmination of the global circulation on the ocean. It is the focus of all of the ocean currents. And when you realize that, the stunning reality is that it was still a slick. Did you know the Gulf of Mexico is absolutely the best place on earth you could have an oil spill? Because it has about 50 to 100,000 barrels a day of oil seeps that are natural across it. There's all kinds of wildlife, you know, bacteria to small plant life and animal life that eats the oil in the place.
Okay.
Furthermore, it's the saltiest and warmest of the big oceans with the most water going through. I couldn't think of any better way to get it into solution, dissolve it away, and get it eaten up and hauled away.
So it will get flushed.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
that's the good news.
That's the good news. And that also is the underlying exclamation point for how horrifying this disaster is. That eddy current is the product of a stream which goes from the east to the west along the Gulf of Mexico's north coast. This forms the shape of the islands along the Gulf Coast from Apalachicola to Horn Island in Mississippi, where it turns south. It runs this direction about 10 months of the year, but 2 months of the year it reverses. That's in hurricane season. Hurricane season will start in a few days. Sometime in the next month or so it will reverse. It's done it for the last several thousand years. It's going to do it. When it reverses, it will haul a lot of that puddle right up across Alabama and Florida's coast. The problem with this spill is because it's deep in the ocean, people are looking for the big blackened beaches. They're not going to see that much. They've seen it in Louisiana and they may see it here. But that's not really the major thing. The major thing is the plating out of the oil in the sands for the next 200 or 300 feet deep in the water.
Okay.
When the sea life, which is breeding season for the sea life right now in the tidal estuaries like Mobile Bay, when the sea life hatches out, it will start migrating for the deep water. When it does, it will seek a safe place in the sand. When it seeks this safe place in the sand, guess where it's going to run into the oil? Then as they start to grow up, they go to the reefs offshore like the pinnacles, and the pinnacles have just been sheeted in oil. The corals are going to die. The fish are going to die. There was nobody when BP was arguing to do stupid things that said, shut down the rig if you do it wrong. Which one of you would ride one of those airplanes if they didn't have standards for the rules of their maintenance, of their power plants and their airframe?
You wouldn't even get in a car that was maintained that way.
That's right. People got to get it through their head. The price of oil has gotten too high for us to live with. It's not safe for us to live with it anymore. You must understand, I'm not against them drilling oil. The roof of my house up here has 100 times more energy falls on it in a year than I use in a year. There is a safer, better way, and it's time to go that way.
Yes.
I'm not even an advocate of stopping offshore drilling, as amazing as it may seem. There's enough wind power to do 6 times our national electric generation just on Indian reservations. The 750,000 volt DC superconducting backbone for America. That happens, you can do solar here, wind there, and it all works for everyone. It will take decades, even at the most optimistic rates, to get everything fixed to where we can be rid of oil as a part of our lives. In fact, I may not live long enough, even if we do this aggressively and assertively. You have a choice. You can pay your money to people who want to murder us, or you can pay it to people who we've seen how careful they are, would maybe destroy the earth. This is common sense. This has no political agenda whatsoever. This is just sanity. That's self-defense.
And you wouldn't call yourself a liberal, would you?
No. As a matter of fact, I'm a conservative. If you check the political signs, you discover I'm a Republican. So we don't have to do what we're doing.